Welcome everyone to In the Hot Seat. For our repeat viewers, thank you for joining us again. For those that are new to the live show, every 2 weeks we put industry experts and our customers in the hot seat for lively discussion, some debate, maybe even a little discourse as we try to humanize the digital experience. All aspects of the customer journey life cycle are up for discussion, as well as the technologies that are used throughout each phase of that journey. This episode is a continuation of our go-to-market series, the fourth one, I think, in that series, actually. And we're going to take a look at the impact of trying to move your company up market. So, Thomas.
Which is quite an endeavor. I mean, enterprise sales and SMB sales are vastly different beasts. And on top of that, I mean, it's not only a sales problem. So we need to change about marketing. Customer success probably is treated different. That's the product support, the enterprise.
Well, the product is the one that I think it's easy to not think about, right? Because you think about the go-to-market motion and you're thinking, oh, I built a good product. But the fact is, and I was reading this article from Andreessen Horowitz, and one of the things they talk about is the product value and building a product value framework, but also stepping back and making sure that your product is actually enterprise ready, because the criteria are different, right? So it's higher, stricter security maybe, or more compliance restrictions or something. And then I thought the piece that I thought in there that was really interesting was the idea of taking, redefine the enterprise ICP, but then you look at that and map that to your product roadmap and to your sales motion.
I mean, there have been companies that just reused their SMB playbook for moving up market, and
there are some unsuccessful companies that do
that. They basically tanked it, right? So there probably are ways of being better. And this is probably the time to talk to someone.
Yep, I think it's a good time. I'll bring him in if you want
this stuff. Yeah. Let me introduce Ricky Thakrar of Zoho. So he says about himself that ironically he was a very shy person growing up and yet went into sales. So this is. Sales engineer is what he turned out to become which is quite interesting. So now customer facing, showcasing demos of product to a variety of clients in all industries from all segments, helped him build confidence and being front to others in an SMB environment, and now in a upcoming enterprise environment. So let's look at it from a technical side. Personally, I mean, he's a human. We all are humans. And guess what?
Are you? He's definitely not an AI agent. I can see him right there.
No AI agent here. No deep fake. That's the good stuff. No deep fakes on this show. So it means there's a life outside of work. So similar to me, although it's probably not so visible on the screen. So we are doing fitness. In contrast to me, he built a full gym, so I only have a Peloton, so I'm probably the poor guy. And well, similar to me again, you never moved back to a public gym. So the Peloton does it for me, plus the 2 bikes, that the mountain and the gravel bike that I have in my garage, that are getting a little underutilized these days, as the Peloton is so easily accessible as well. So thanks for coming.
Yeah,
thanks for sharing thanks in advance for sharing your insight. And
sure. Well, and I mean, it's a really appropriate time to bring you on too, because I know I just was at a Zoho event a month or so ago and spent a lot of time talking to people about this idea that you guys are now making a real play for the enterprise. So I mean, you're going through all of these things, so I suspect we'll get some interesting insights out of the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. We've learned a lot along the way, for sure. Yeah.
Talking about learnings. Let's
learnings,
start from
insights.
The beginning.
Yeah.
Let's start actually at the beginning. So, what are signals that you see that a tech company can move up market at all?
Yeah. I'll start with more of a high level answer, and then talk about
Sure.
my personal experience at Zoho. So, just generally high level, I think you guys already mentioned it. Your product matures. There's compliances, there's APIs, there's features that make you confident that it's a upmarket ready product, and then you have market traction from the outside.
Mhm.
Leads coming in, and then of course as Thomas, you just said this, customer success and operational scalability. Do you have the right teams in place? Those are to me the top three things to focus on. But at Zoho, things happened a little differently. I felt that the market pulled us faster than probably we even pushed ourselves. So before we had the operations ready, before we even had a product ready, there were already leads coming in that were larger than we expected. That's a really, really good sign. And what happened because of that is that we accelerated on the product side and the operations side because of the market pulling us. I kind of think of our experience at Zoho to be more of a organizational maturity that got us to being upmarket ready. We didn't overplan our GTM. We didn't get together and build a playbook. In fact, what we did was we just did our very best to bring in these larger clients, and then based on their needs, we grew our teams. So it's very contextual to knowing the type of clients we're going to attract. And then we connected the themes, we connected the similarities, and then our teams kind of came in place. Maybe a little backwards from what most people are used to because they build their playbook first. But in a company like ours where we draw a wide variety of customers, we have to see which ones are the best fit. And based on that, we ended up making our teams put together. I think when I talk about organizational maturity, that's for a larger company like ours. But if you're in a startup, you might not have all of the people and the resources there. So another good strategy to apply, and we've done this, is bring in the executives with your early adopters. Right? Connect your executives with their executives. Build faith and trust into the entire organization. That way, when those customers successful, they will become referrals and references, and that actually can hold a higher weight than market traction or your product. And so we've done both things, right? So just to kind of summarize, organizational maturity accelerated because of the customers we had, and we built our strategy based on the type of customers we did successfully close. And then we brought in a lot of our executives into these conversations so that we could provide a lot of trust with our early adopters.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought was interesting about Zoho in general is this idea that every time I've talked to people, they'll talk about different products and the maturity of the products. You're one of the few companies I feel like that tracks that really clearly. So, this product is ready for the enterprise. This product is not ready, et cetera. And I was really impressed with that. I thought that was, that must make it simpler for you to design that go-to-market sales process around.
Yeah, exactly. It takes a little bit of humility to look back at all your products and realize, hey, these are the more mature ones, and these are still very SMB focused. And maybe not everyone agrees, but your customers will tell you that story when they buy the product. So we are connecting the dots, making sure the ones we have picked as the subset that's more upmarket ready does reflect the same needs of our clients. And I think we were pretty spot on with deciding that mix of products.
And how far does this pull or this concentration on more mature products pull up let's say, the rest of the products as well? Because bigger companies often have more complicated to complex requirements than smaller ones, which in a multi-product company often involve the other products. So what's the consequence on that? If you are saying we are focusing on this part that is more mature, and for time being disregard the other part while taking into account being pulled.
I wouldn't say we're disregarding the others, but as you said, those other products are more incentivized and know what things to add. And there are, between all of our products, there are a lot of similarities on the platform, similar features that we know that these are the reasons the customers are adopting this particular product. So then product, XYZ will also add some of those same features into their platform so that they can also be able to reach that same type of client. Because what we've seen is there are themes. It's not that it's those individual features, it's these platform customization capabilities. So rather than just dumping new features into the product, we actually are trying to add platform capabilities so that all of them can move up market. We're now able to identify what those capabilities are very clearly. And so that's enabled a lot of the other products to mature faster. And I think it also helped us kind of organize our products in a different way. Originally, we were just, 50 plus apps for your business. Now we've, been able to streamline exactly to the needs of the enterprise, which group of products provide what types of solutions. And it makes it easier for then the enterprise buyer to connect with us. So if you have a lot of different products, try to bundle them or market them in a way that meets the needs of your clients versus trying to create all of your own little pricing bundles. And now I think we've met in the middle where it makes sense for us and it makes sense for the customer. Yeah.
There's a comment from Christy. If product leader, and she's also a product leader, so this is a really good point. Product leaders aren't involved with go to market. There's a huge problem. Yep, definitely
Absolutely.
agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was thinking about when you're talking about the the experience that you've had, the maturity as the company grows. You started with small and mid-sized business, and you've certainly been a powerhouse in the mid-market. But how do you, and you're obviously, your go to market, your sales process, everything is organized around that at the time you start
Yes.
to move that way, right? So what do you change in the sales process to make that be an enterprise motion versus that SMB?
Yeah. The primary thing, besides creating a separate team is the strategy of the team goes from sales process to buying process, right? With SMBs, you play more of a role in guiding them step by step because there's so many unknowns in what they actually need. Versus enterprise come in with research, with RFPs, with all their needs mostly mapped out, and so they have a way that they buy products. In a way, they're qualifying you to see if you're ready for them, and the traditional sales process is the other way around, where you're qualifying them to see if they're ready for you. So I think that's a big switch. It's just you're putting yourself in their shoes. So they're qualifying you, and then they are buying instead of you're selling and you're qualifying them. It's a completely different mindset. And so because of that, every single deal, the strategy is different. You can't just treat deals the same way. So, salespeople try their best to right the ship and focus in on their sales process. But if you overdo it, the customer will obviously see it that you're in sales mode and you're not in, basically what I would say is a consulting mode, a relationship driven mode where you're just talking to them about their needs or problems and you're facilitating however they buy SaaS software, right? Or whatever it is they're buying. And mid markets are the most challenging because they behave sometimes as an SMB and sometimes as an enterprise. So you really have to know who's on the other side. And so my overall statement to that would be like, let's tone down how process heavy we are and focus on the people. And I told this to the sales team, right? It's the technology and the process are actually the two easier things in my opinion. It's the people that are the harder piece, right? People cause delays, people have friction, there's cultural differences in an organization. And so the salesperson is really orchestrating all the people together, people on our side, people on their side, and making sure that movement continues towards the sale versus what step are they in, what step are they not. It doesn't really matter.
I mean,
that's how I've been approaching it.
That's definitely a much more aware and consultative, if you said, approach when you think about that. The other thing I wonder about as you're adjusting, because the other thing I assume changes is the number of interactions you have to get to that deal, right? I mean, it's generally a bigger team. You're dealing with, executives and also line managers and IT, and so you have to interact more across a broader segment of the population inside that company.
Absolutely. You can't just focus on a champion when it comes to larger clients. You have to get complete organizational buy-in. So I've taught the team everything comes down to a vote. And if you don't get the majority of that vote, you're not going to make it. No matter how strong your champion is, there's still going to be a vote. right? And so you have to get buy-in from everybody. That goes back to my original statement of there's executive buy-in as well. So you can bring in our executives to get that executive buy-in check mark. And then you have the technical folks to get the IT check mark. Then you have the sales folks to get the procurement and maybe the business leaders, like the sales managers, check mark. And then, of course, there is a champion, and I'm sure they will vouch for us in the discussion. But because there's a vote, don't just focus on one individual person. This idea of multi-threaded selling that I've seen a lot as become a popular sales strategy. I truly believe that works, but multi-threaded strategy is not just one to many, it's many to many. So you have to, as I said, orchestrate the individuals inside your company to bring in them into the sales strategically, not all at the same time on every meeting, but as needed. And that's how you'll be successful. And that has given us success. Yeah.
Which basically orchestrate your own personnel basically suggests that you organizationally need to do something as well in order to become and or stay successful. I mean, I'm a selection consultant also, and I often see vendors do exactly what you just said is, well, counterproductive by enforcing their process on their clients instead of well, allowing yourself being qualified. So that suggests that these companies haven't made a transition that is probably necessary. So what is this transition? How does the organizational structure need to reflect this different sales approach or sales target group, basically?
There has to be a completely different layer in your company to work with larger clients. I mean, you can almost think of it as two companies, right? So you have your SMB team and then your upmarket, enterprise, mid-market, depending on the segment that you're focusing on. That has to be a different layer. That layer is different for marketing and demand gen, for ABM, for thought leadership, and all the way through sales and support, and most importantly of all, the services and consulting teams. Because the needs of the enterprise is, they always say things like, I want something that's turnkey, and I'm looking for something that's easy to implement. And what I really extract out of that is they want a more personalized approach to buying, and they want a personalized solution as well. So in order to get a personalized solution, you have to bring in a personalized approach to buying. What do we do to do that? Well, we go above and beyond on things like a POC, right? We don't just say, here's our generic off-the-shelf POC for this vertical. We go 3-4 steps further to make it actually look like what they would see in their company. And that allows, the sales team is doing one thing, but then the sales engineers are doing the technical side of things. That gives the buy-in for the IT guys who say, wow, if you were able to build this POC in a week or two, then it must be as easy as you actually say, versus just hypotheticals and numbers and ROIs. We actually go that far. And I think it's also a good learning for us, because if we get a client again in that same industry, we're able to build that POC faster a second or third time. And so that's the two things. We've created another layer, and I advise all companies to do that. Otherwise, there's too much mix and match. However, that layer can share content, right? SMB content in the marketing layer can be shared to the enterprise layer, and they can build on top of it. So that way you still have the same themes. And then number two is just hyper personalization, right? That's what they mean when they say turnkey and off the shelf. They know that's not the reality of any software in the world, right? It would be great if it was, but what that really means to me is I want a personal experience and I want a personal solution. So let's get to that as fast as we can. Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm going to share. We have a question that came in from the audience, which I think this is actually really interesting. And certainly a lot of companies are in product-led growth kind of go-to-market models. And so her question is, how does that come into play when you're, when you're go-to-market for SMB, and then how does that shift when you're actually now trying to move up market and you have maybe mixed offerings, or you certainly still have some PLG offerings. What does that look like in the context of the enterprise?
Yeah, in our company traditionally has always been product-led growth, right? So that's the way I've been brought up. I've been here for 14 years. That's what I always turn to. So when I realized in the enterprise, it only goes so far. So it does go places. Maybe with a subset of people you're communicating with that are on the IT side, they are always very, very product focused. I've been on many on-sites. They just care, does the product work, and am I going to be able to be a good administrator? So I think there's always an aspect of that that's going to be there. But because other business leaders are part of the sale, it can't be your only approach, right? So taking it back to SMB, I've always seen that they're always wearing multiple hats. So if you take the PLG approach and they're a bit technical, you can just completely focus on that because that's one of the hats they're wearing. They're also wearing the business hat, so you can take that approach too. Either way, it'll work for them because they're both roles. But on the enterprise side, you have to figure out different approaches for different individuals. And so so while we've traditionally been product-led growth, I think what we've changed, our main thing that we've changed is that it's much more personal services involved, right? So how can we service them during the demo? So we build these POCs. How do we service them after they purchase? How do we service them beyond implementation? So we focus a lot on the service aspect that, hey, you're not alone. There are all of these teams that are going to continue to guide and grow with you. This is not just buy our product and call our support when you have questions, right? And that's the significant thing that we've changed. So now part of our proposal is what happens after the sale, because to me, that's when their success starts, is after they go live. Our success starts when they give us the money, which is great. It could be April 21st, but their success won't start maybe till June 30th or July 31st when they go live. So we're trying to focus on their success. So customer success has kept focusing on the vendor success. Oh, it starts right when you buy and then we start onboarding. That's not customer success. It's actually still part of the sale. Customer success is go live date.
You just said something quite interesting. So product-led growth in an enterprise environment where you require a lot of services. Doesn't that mean that the product is less in the lead, and that if you want to keep it more in the lead, that you need to choose the right first clients?
So are you saying something along the lines of
No, what I'm
the
saying, so
emphasize?
earlier you said it's you lead, or you are getting pushed by your clients.
Yes.
So this means that the product is not the growth driver, but the client is the growth driver. So, and this also means if you're still in an SMB environment in parallel, you somehow need to marry those two very distinct approaches to each other. How to keep the balance?
Yeah, I mean I think that's where our service teams are coming in, right? They're balancing the needs of our clients and our product, right? Our product, if you look at our product, we're one of the things that we're really pushing is low code and time to value. But I think that's the same as any vendor on the market, right? And so it only takes you so far. Everyone says the same thing, and then you have the customer. The customer sees all of these same marketing jargon across every product. I'm sure they're sending RFPs across. So where do you meet them in the middle? And that's where we are putting that services layer, where we're not just giving a demo, we're going as far as not even just building a POC. I think we're building a replica almost of what it looks like in your environment. That's how we're drawing that gap, because it does two things. One, it shows that this vendor is going to go the extra mile if they're already starting on that that kind of effort. That means that's hopefully going to continue. It creates a good first impression. But number two, I think what really helps us show is that time to value. And if our team can build it this fast, your marketing jargon must actually be true, because you actually did build it this fast to show me.
Yeah.
That's where all the gaps that we're trying to fix here is we can build on our own product just as fast as we're advertising and marketing. And I'm going to show you that in 2 weeks when we do a demo. And that's a big part of, for us, our play is that itself too.
I mean, that's a powerful thing if you can get something in their hands very quickly that maps to what they actually need. You demonstrate how flexible, how flexible your low code, no code platform is and what you can get. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I have a follow on to the PLG question that Christy asked, because I was thinking about this a lot. When you talk about pricing and packaging, it's a tough one when you're moving up market, right? I mean, you certainly you have, and I mean, Zoho's known for value, right? You're priced in ways that demonstrate a lot of value to your customers. How does the pricing and packaging go? Change, and then what kind of mistakes do you see companies make when they're trying to move up market and shift from just that focus on the mid market?
I think to answer the question very directly, I think the mistake that a lot of companies make is just blindly following what everyone else does, As simple as that, right? So you look at everyone else in your space and say, oh, they have 3 versions and there's this many features. We'll make something similar. I don't know, we'll make it 10% less, whatever it is, right? I think that is the mistake. I think it's good to get a little creative. So our values are flexibility and transparency, right? So what are your pricing values? We say flexibility because we don't lock people into annual contracts. They can actually go monthly on any of our tiers, right? That's the flexibility portion. Then there's the transparency portion of there's no call for pricing on any of our products. They all have the price list on the site. Sometimes it's a little unbelievable for some of our clients because they're so used to seeing the call for pricing on the higher tier editions. But that's our core values, and we don't want to go away from those. However, that we still have to add our kind of creative edge to it. So for example, one of the creative things that we did was Zoho One, where, we had a list of products. We wanted to bundle them together. We wanted to provide a benefit to the customer in price because you're buying everything that we have. We want to give you a price break. How do we do it in a way where it doesn't sound like, oh, buy all of our products and get 50% off, right? Something very generic. So we thought of something creative. You bring in all of your employees. This is the all employee price. And then the way this is positioned is, well, you have, let's say 100, 200, 1,000 employees in your company. How much should they pay? How much should your IT spend for each employee's SaaS applications or any technology? We realized that maybe it should be a couple dollars a day. So we based our price off of that. So rather than saying, oh, it's all of our products, use all of them. No, we're just saying on an average basis, if you buy all of these tools, it should only cost you a couple bucks a day. They use 1, they use 30, they use 20, doesn't matter. I think it's a fair price. It averages out over time. And that's been received really, really well. And it was a very creative thing to do, is this all employee plan versus having the usual tiers and then features between all those tiers. And then, you're playing all these games with discounts and whatnot. Now in the enterprise side, there's also it's a very disruptive price. So a lot of people, still don't understand it. So when you go creative, you also have the problem of they don't understand it because they're trying to compare apples to apples with other products. Well, they have this edition. Which edition do you have? And we're saying here, well, on Zoho One, there are no editions. It's the all employee plan. And so what you have to do in the enterprise is just be flexible and adjust, right? So you have your creative plan, but then don't forget that they also expect certain things: volume discounts, multi-year contracts, room to negotiate, and you should keep all of that on the table, right? You don't want to be so creative where you actually become rigid in your creativity either. It's creativity with with a little bit of flexibility to understand where they're coming from, right? So being customer centric. So we do get customers looking at a price saying, wow, that sounds great. What are the, volume discounts, right? We don't have volume discounts because this is the creative pricing, but we have to address it. Otherwise they're going to get a little confused because they're buying certain things a certain way. And they might, go look at another product because they're just not interpreting what you're doing. So, so creativity is great, and then still being flexible for.
I mean, I would think, I would think that's one of the bigger confusion points when you're talking to the enterprise, because how many of your competitors in that enterprise market have, that such a simple pricing method? It's almost like you have to explain the simplicity versus the complexity of the other offers.
Even defend the simplicity.
Or defend it.
Yeah. It's ironic because the simplicity is the complexity, right?
Yeah.
Now that's a twist.
Well, we are, quite frankly, all of us are educated to expect a discount. Simple as.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
now this becomes part of the emotion. So how do you avoid this creativity become a burden, a liability?
Yeah, and this is one of those things where you're almost experimenting when you put these out there to see how the clients react to it. There will be a set that reacts very favorably. There'll be a set that's confused, and we take it upon our sales team to make sure that they understand these things, because instead of talking about the price, we talk about the pricing strategy with our clients, right? So, forget whatever number it is. Our entire strategy is different from what you're comparing it to, right? And so, sales tends to say, oh, it's X dollars per month per user, whatever kind of plan that you have. I don't want to say that number. I talk about, we have tiers, we have a freemium model, we have this all-employee plan. I use strategy terms to kind of
Mhm.
bring some context into it on where we stand versus the other clients. Once you get a little buy-in on that, then you can actually say the numbers. Otherwise, the number makes no sense to them, right? And so I always tell the team, talk about the strategy and not the number. Give them the number.
Mm.
We're not going to deny them the number, but talk about our approach. It is actually different. So if you just say it's $37, that's it. That's all they know, and they probably is the same as the competitor, whatever they're offering. No, right? We have tiered pricing. We do feature-based. We have freemium. That stuff exists in our individual products. But what we've done in this special case, and then we go with the positioning of that, right? And it takes some time sometimes to connect because it is different, but we have had a lot of success because we're spending the time to explain it as well, and they're liking what they hear. It's a disruptive model, but I also think that a lot of software will end up going in this direction with the impact of AI tools, bundling and giving a bunch of software at a lower cost. I think that's the trend of the market, and it's the AI tools that will be the next phase of software, not these applications anymore. I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve anyway. So, yeah.
And it's it's interesting to think about the fact that what you're saying, and I think this is probably a very important point for startups too to think through, is you're really looking at where's the biggest friction point going to be in your process, and you work to eliminate those friction points up front before you go into that deeper discussion that could very well be a confusion point if they didn't really have a baseline knowledge. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You talked about we touched on professional services a little bit before, and certainly from a company Zoho size, that's you have a professional services team. It's not something new. You have a lot of partners, but for a startup, this is a tough one, right? Because I mean, especially in the earlier days, you have people that your sales engineers also on the dev team and doing implementations, right? So when do you think companies should think about standing up a true professional services function and building out that capability, because you're not going to be successful in the enterprise if you don't have it?
Yeah, absolutely. We historically we did invest a lot in services. We were all about products. It's a more recent investment, and originally we didn't have well-defined teams. Our product teams were doing the implementation. What we realized is if the product team does the implementation, they will learn from it, because they're all from different geographies, they're from different backgrounds. But if they're doing like a real estate implementation in the US and an insurance implementation in Europe, they're taking a lot of this knowledge with them to build into the product. So for a while, that was our approach, is the product team, part of their job was implementing the customers. Could we take on a lot of these? No, right? We were still very channel heavy, but we selectively took some on. And instead of going with the traditional pricing route, because we were going to get something out of doing the implementation, like, we're going to learn this vertical. So we brought the prices significantly lower so that we could take it on. So it was more of, it's almost like thinking it's a marketing cost for the product team to learn this vertical by doing the implementation. So that's our marketing cost, right? That's why we didn't charge for it. It's more of our own spend. We spend time, we spend the resources. And then from there, as our upmarket potential grew, then you had to put the teams in place. But I think it was really good that we had the product teams do it originally, because it accelerated some product features to come out faster, and that actually helped the implementation teams. And now our implementation teams are focused on three main aspects: feasibility, migration, integration. Right. And so our whole positioning here is time to value on all three of these pillars, right? I would call it. And then we have a different team for SMB. We have a different team for mid-market, and we have a different team for enterprise, because the approach is going to be a little different, of course, as well. We can't have the same group do it all. It would be messy for the SMB guys to work with the enterprise team, getting these massive proposals and SOWs. They want to get right to the point. So we have to have three different teams as well. Yeah.
Now, having the product teams doing the customer implementations as well, or being heavily involved in the customer implementations as well, has, well, at least one significant disadvantage, which is planability for your own product roadmap. So because all of a sudden, those people, you need to get the stuff done
Yes. Yes.
are getting other stuff done, which is similarly important, which
Yeah.
at one point in time turns into a liability. This is one. The other one is probably like, well, we had at SAP this attitude that the developer knows better what the customer wants than all the other people at SAP, and probably even at the customer as well. So how do you avoid falling into those two traps?
Yeah, that's where it came down to the balance of not taking on a lot of projects to start, right? It was minimal. I mean, one or two to start, and still relying on the channel partners, and even getting involved with the channel partners on the product side, which is not very common. So we were helping the partners as well from the product team. But I think, I know they always have their own features and things to release, but because of doing the implementations, they were also releasing features at the same time. We had a customer needing a specific type of functionality, and they built it during the implementation. So it became a feature for everybody through this implementation. So I think it didn't really slow us down. It may have pivoted what was priority, but features were released at the same time during the implementations. And I thought that was a win for customers in general, saying, hey, 6 months implementation, we also released 5 features at the same time, because we wanted those things off the shelf. We didn't want to custom build everything. Because it's off the shelf, it's easier for us to support. So because the product manager and product team is involved, they just go ahead and engineer it off the shelf at the same time, and that worked really well for us. It's a balance though, right? Like you said. So
And
otherwise,
also probably involves careful selection of the clients, because I mean,
yes, very much.
if there is a feature that sounds great on paper but is probably a one-off, nobody else Mike needs it. Thomas says, I couldn't care any less about this one.
Yes.
And if I happen to be then the majority of customers or businesses in that industry, then well, things get interesting on the product side as well.
It was
I mean,
it was very strategic, on what industries we picked. Yep.
It's interesting to think about what you just said, though, in the context of building a startup. You've got an MVP that you're trying to get more features in and building out over time, and what you're saying is you're using that process of taking those first few enterprise customers, and you learn from them, learn what they need. And at the same time, you're educating your product team on the kinds of things they need to think about as they go forward to accelerate the development of the product. So that's a great idea.
To me, it's the same as, the product team reaching out to support and sales, asking, hey, what are some of the things that people need? Now they're getting it firsthand. But for us, we wanted them to get that firsthand experience. And some of them actually liked it so much, they moved to the implementation team that we started. They preferred not being on the back end anymore. But yeah, I thought, again, going back to my original, answer there of not overdoing the GTM and overdoing the processes, just saying, hey, you guys figure out 3-4 people. We're going to take this one on and let's do it. From there, what are we going to learn? What can we release? What can we experience with our customers and build a better solution? And because the product team is getting it firsthand, there's just a completely different way that they interpret it, because they're hearing the complaints, they're hearing the requests, they're hearing the nice to haves, must haves, versus getting an email or a request from the sales team where it's like, thanks, we'll get to it. We've got 5 other things to do, right? So it did help us. Is it going to work for everybody? No, but we had a big enough product team in order to allow that to happen. But I think it also allowed us, as I said, to build the features off the shelf that we knew were needed for certain verticals. And that eventually led to, hey, we're ready for this vertical because we've done these things in-house. We know we're ready for that vertical. Not because we're deciding to spend money marketing. It's because we've done 5-6 projects in this vertical. We have the logos, we have the know-how. We know how to build it. So now we can market into it. So it gave us some confidence as well on the vertical marketing. Yeah,
that makes sense. Well, what kinds of things do you see as pitfalls? Like what kinds of problems have you seen, with your experience of moving up market, mistakes or challenges that companies really haven't thought through very well, or that you guys didn't think through very well, maybe in your shift there?
think the one I just mentioned, and I can tie it to this question too, of
Mm.
you're looking at the enterprise space, you're going to make this massive marketing playbook and just start spending a lot of money without really understanding your own clients. So if you just copy another enterprise vendor with their pricing plan and then copy their playbook, is that the most efficient way to spend? I think that could be a big mistake that a vendor could make, is just copying what's out there, and you get lost in the noise. And another thing is just the shiny object syndrome of chasing the big whale as soon as it comes in, pouring all our resources and chasing the big whale. I don't think that those are the best things a company can do. I mean, it's great to have those big whales come in, but I think what you really need to do is as you're growing up market, let's say in the Zoho world, we went to 100 users, 500 users, 1,000 users, right? So if you get the 100 user deal, then the 500 user lead comes in. Should you put all your resources there? And then what if that 100 user leaves because they had an issue with the product? And then it doesn't matter. You didn't really grow. You got another shiny object, but the other shiny object from last year is now gone. I think there needs to be a lot more emphasis on the existing customer base. So as you grow up market, all of those mid-market clients, you can't lose them just because a massive enterprise deal came in. Make sure you keep those, because they are the referrals and references that will help you grow in the first place. And a lot of companies, I think I've seen it a lot, where a lot of companies just forget those clients and they keep going after bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, while the other ones are not really getting the experience that they want continuing. Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like one of those big mistakes that all companies that are trying to move up market particularly have to think through, right? Because it's easy in from a sales perspective to think, I got to get the next deal. But from the company perspective, you've got to keep the last deal.
Right. Exactly. It's actually more important, right, that you keep that last deal, or it creates a ripple effect in the market where they're saying, oh, I did buy it, but it was not a good experience, and then they might tell other people, and that's not going to help you grow.
I mean, it's a counter to what you're trying to do, actually, right? Because it could easily be a negative.
And you do not want to cannibalize your customer base, but you want to grow from your current base, which basically, if you have a brief advice, what would be the first actionable step that you advise a business leader to go?
Yeah, I'd say, make sure you have the right resources and teams in place for the recurring revenue, NRR, maybe more importantly than the ARR, right? So it's NRR being more important than ARR. So there has to be a really good customer success group that can focus on revenue retention. That revenue retention, again, will have ripple effects on referrals, references, case studies, all of these different things that will actually help you get more of these clients and help you in terms of third-party reviews and all those other other things that can give you more exposure in the market. And so make sure that's in place really well. And maybe one more thing is not chasing the short term. Right, Zoho has our inbuilt philosophy is very, very long-term thinking. Not what's next quarter, but what are the next 5 years looking like. And so, and a lot of companies get into this short-term dollar chasing, and it goes back to even just chasing the big whale, right? Let's not do that. You want to maintain, you want to be around for years and years to come. If that's your strategy, you want to grow your business, you want to stay around for the next 10 years, then don't chase the short-term dollar. In fact, medium level growth could be more beneficial than getting this huge, steep, vertical, hyper growth. And then what do you do from there, right? You can be comfortable doing this. It's kind of like a compound interest versus just dumping all your money into some big gambling cryptocurrency, right? Whatever it is. Just look what the next 10 years look like. And it's the same philosophy you can apply internally, and you can apply it to your own life too, right? You don't have to buy everything right now. Save and spend wisely, and you'll get what you want, and you'll have a bigger benefit for the outcome. So yeah, those are my two lasting I think pieces of advice.
Makes sense. So we're almost out of time, but just one more quick question, because I love this idea of what's the one sort of counterintuitive piece of advice that you'd give founders, sales leaders when they're just starting to look at and begin the journey to move up market?
Counterintuitive piece of advice. I thought, let's see.
It's a mean one.
It is a mean one. I mean, I guess in some ways
I
what you
guess-
just said is counterintuitive,
Yeah.
right? That the idea that you
Mm.
want to go slowly and build that.
Yeah,
you know,
I think I can stick to that
Okay.
statement. It's
I like
let's
that
say you're a founder, and of course you are going to be chasing that fast growth metric. That's maybe what your investor wants you to chase, or that's what you
Mm.
want to chase. And I'm saying don't do that. That's my
Yeah.
counter to it. Right?
Well, and I mean,
Right.
for private companies, and Zoho one too, obviously, but for private companies, you got that choice. But unfortunately, if you've taken VC money, the choice isn't there, right? I mean, you have to have the VC money to grow
Correct.
fast, but you have to grow fast.
Correct.
Mm.
Correct.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of companies make that mistake even during COVID. Like they spiked, and then as soon as the pandemic sort of ended, as you would call it, you saw the exact opposite happen, and you're thinking, what did you guys think was going to happen at some point?
Mm.
This was going to end. What was the plan? I don't really know. We didn't really think that far. We hired a lot of people, and we spent all this money, and now the growth is slower. So that's why we continue to just go with that kind of steady growth. I'd call it steady growth. It can be faster, but steady is better than those massive spikes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, looking at the time.
Oh, okay.
Sadly,
Well, sadly, there's no time, but there's lots of interesting topics to go. The good news, though, is you survived the hot seat. Although, well,
it wasn't all that hot today. I mean, it was a good
we cranked it a
conversation.
little up at the end.
Yeah,
Just right
a
at
little
the end.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for coming, and thanks a lot for your great advice and your great
Yeah.
insight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. To everybody else, if you think you have what it takes to be in the hot seat, let's know. We'd love to hear from you and see whether we can put you into the hot seat or the other way around. And this is your episode for today. Thanks for being us this week. I'm Thomas Wieberneit.
And I'm Michael Fauscette. Tune in next time for different faces, some different topics, and maybe we'll even put somebody in the hot seat.